Ovulation. Let's talk about getting pregnant really quick. All right,
Okay.
let me give you the juice. Biggest myth of all time. You can get pregnant every day of your cycle. No, numb nut, you can't. Like you literally, you cannot. That is physically impossible, right?
Hello, honey, and welcome to Honey Do Me Podcast. I'm Cass.
And I'm Emma, and we're just two gals looking for a good lay.
Aren't we all? But when it comes to sex, we're just as lost as you and have no idea what we're doing.
Luckily, we will stop at nothing to get the answers we need. Cue our expert guests.
We're ready to overshare and ask all the embarrassing questions so you don't have to.
By the end of every episode, you will be dripping in actionable steps and ready to take on the damn world.
Or at least take it from behind.
So tell us, honey, how do you do you? I clicked record, so we're going.
Okay, here we go.
This is how most of our episodes are. I just tend to cut it out, but this time I won't.
Let them know the real raw us.
Real and raw. I wish you wouldn't growl raw.
Real and raw.
You're so scary when you do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome to another week with us. Good morning,
Poop
good
and
afternoon,
toots.
and good night. Poop and toots are right here for you.
Yep.
Which poop is actually something we talk about today, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. I have a small little update from last week that
Okay.
I can note on. So I felt a little depressy after I mentioned that I hadn't had a masturbation routine in a while.
Okay.
So I tried to be a little bit more intentional about that this last week, and I was successful. So that's good. Yeah, I even if I wasn't super in the mood, I kind of like set aside time, kicked my dog out of the room, and like
that bitch to the curb.
kick that bitch to the curb. And you know, he's been living rent free for like 3 years.
It's time to fucking pay the piper.
He can go find somewhere else to live for all I care.
So your roommate's room.
So yeah, I kicked him out into her room. And I just set aside some intentional time for myself, which was nice. And yesterday, doesn't matter what day for all you listening, I made it like a very intentional me day. And because I saw on TikTok this girl talking about how like Friday nights in are like the best nights of her life.
I saw that TikTok.
And like making a very intentional night for herself. So I decided to do that for myself, and I felt happier and better and lighter.
That's wonderful.
So I've been trying to focus on that a little bit this week. And so that's my update.
I think that's a wonderful upstate.
Upstate New York.
That's
Taylor
wonderful
Swift
for them.
filmed her Red. I won't get into it. And I listened to Red. Oh my God, I made that my whole day. I listened to the album. I watched All Too Well all the way through, like twice, 2 or 3 times. And I had wine and I had my dinner and I was just ready.
That's beautiful. Red E.
But I was in my casual clothes, and what would have made it better is if I was in a little enchanté.
We don't
Yeah.
speak French, so we don't know. But what we do know is that we are working with an amazing company, Aurelia, and they do curated subscription lingerie boxes.
And they have such a good like sizing
Oh my
range too. Like it's very like specific and tailored to you. It like takes what fits you best, and that's how they measure you.
Exactly.
It's not just your standard small, medium, large.
That was the part that I was most nervous about trying out this service. Like, I don't fit right in a lot of things. My boobs are
My tiny
small
titties.
for most things. And so there's like gaping, and I don't feel, that does not make you feel sexy.
Yeah.
When you like,
When you feel a
there's
breeze
just
move
like
past your
fucking
nipple.
gaping
Yeah.
in the bra. But I took my measurements myself. So you fill out like their entire style quiz, put in all of your measurements, and they got my measurements to a fucking T. I thought I was doing it wrong, first of all. I like looked on their website and all of that to make sure I was doing it right. And oh my God.
Yeah.
Like the fit.
perfect.
Phenomenal.
And you get to try it on in the privacy and comfort of your own home and your own mirror, which is important.
Your
Trying
own
things-
lighting.
Yeah, your own preference. So all of that is what makes Aurelia 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5. 5 out of
All
5 is their
the
ratings.
numbers out of,
their number.
100%. So if you want to try Aurelia, you can get 10% off when you use code DEWME, DEWME, for their monthly or seasonal box. Highly recommend. It is so fun.
So fun. Speaking of fun, do you have any fun updates yourself for this last week?
No.
Nope.
I guess so. I've been open about my struggle with like my libido being really off because of my medication. That hasn't changed. But I haven't been really intentional about changing it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I have trouble. If I have the option between sitting and watching TV and not thinking about life, I will probably do that. But now that I have less depression, I definitely have the capacity to do more and to really take that on. It's just about like taking that step. What I have been more intentional about is my relationship, I think. So we've been trying to like set aside time to connect. We actually, I don't know, we're setting up our dining area so that we actually eat dinner together at a table.
Cute. That's great.
Yeah, instead of just watching TV, which I never want to be somebody who never does that. It's very important to me to sometimes watch TV while I eat my dinner. And I never want to be a family that's like, we always have family dinner. That sounds to me. You do you, but whatever. And so I'm really excited to have that space. And I bought these cute little like conversational cards that we do really well.
Like a B&B.
Exactly. We do really well when we have like structured questions. Not that we like don't have stuff to talk about constantly, but it's fun to kind of add some variety. So I'm excited about that. And so I've just been more intentional about my relationship. And I think when I am ready to really like start having sex and masturbating more, I think that will help
follow
a lot.
Absolutely.
So,
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, good to hear.
Yeah.
And your dining room looks adorable.
Thank you.
I saw
it
myself.
looks so cute. I love it so much.
Yes. In tune, I guess, with being intentional, tuning into your body. Today, we're talking about paying attention to your period.
Your fifth vital sign.
Yes, your fifth vital sign as of 2020.
Yeah. We are talking with the truly phenomenal Berrion Berry. She is a true just menstrual health expert. Just your period bestie. She gives us all the information that we've been needing. And we talk a lot about periods, and I learned so much in this episode. So we're going to start from the basics, but we're really going to get
work
in there.
Our way up to how it affects your eating, exercise, your lifestyle, and then obviously sex. How it sucks. Sex and pleasure. Why we're all here. What voice is that?
I don't know.
What are we doing?
I don't
It's like
know.
a really creepy cartoon. Fox. Anyway, so it's all very important if you're a menstruator to take away some like amazing information that you will never learn unless you like put in effort to do research into menstruating.
Exactly.
Because no one's going to teach you this shit and it could change your life.
Except for people like Berry.
Except for people like Berry.
That's
and her
why
name
she's
sounds
here.
like an ice cream. So why wouldn't you
And
trust
she's
her?
just as sweet.
Just as sweet. So let's let her take it away.
Yeah.
And we'll see you on the other side.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye. Calling all our holiday hoes, we're saying no thank you to hairy gumdrops this season. And it's Manscaped that's going to help get us there.
Thank God. They are going above and beyond the groin this time with 2 new products. Their Ultra Premium Body Wash, and it's infused with aloe vera and sea salt to keep you feeling nice and moisturized. And their 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, which works to strengthen your hair, condition your scalp, so that you're just one moisturized bitch.
Love moisture.
Love that.
And if the Grinch in your panties
Ew.
is wily as hell, go ahead and grab their Lawnmower 4.0 pube trimmer. It's skin safe, so no Grinches will be harmed in the making of your masterpiece. And it's waterproof, which is also cool.
Sick. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DEWME, DEWME at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com when you use code DEWME, DEWME.
Experience premium grooming with Manscaped.
Well, hey, honeys. What's up? Like, I don't know the nickname of the community, but my name is Berrion Berry, but literally everyone calls me Berry Berry. Professionally, right? Like what the letters after my name are. I'm a board certified integrative health practitioner, menstrual health educator, and coach. But like, honestly, today I'm going to be your period loving bestie. Okay. So
Yes.
like, I don't really like the like buttoned up professional stuff. So we're just going to chill and talk periods. And what I do is I actually fix periods, but naturally. That's what I do. So yeah, that's it. How did I get started? I was fixing my own problem, and then I realized everyone else had it too. So that'll do it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We have been looking to talk to someone about this topic since we started the podcast. Talking about periods and hormones have been like one of a huge topics for us.
Well, yeah, because we've both struggled.
Yeah.
But it can be such an overwhelming and not super fun topic. So we're really excited.
You're talking to the wrong people.
Yes, exactly. So that's why we're so excited to have you here today and just have some friend chat about how to navigate these things, because we realize that we talk about it all the time, but that doesn't mean everybody else is talking about it all the time. So let's talk about it all the time.
Yes.
That's what I do. So, so glad I'm here. It's so interesting because people think that periods are really taboo and there's this stigma. And I'm like, listen, if it wasn't for periods, you wouldn't have babies. So let's just kind of open it up and keep it real. And I notice generally when people talk about periods, right, it's a conversation with your like OBGYN, and then they're talking in this level that like you almost don't understand. It's like, English, please. Like, birth control is an option, but it's not the only one. What are my other options? So I try to be really conversational and fun.
And I saw so I'm just going to lead in with one more other thing that you were saying, because like how it should be more of a conversation, since like children are the reason we have, periods are the reason we have children. But I also saw another TikTok of this guy talking, and he was talking about like period poops. Because like me and my sister have always talked like, oh yeah, got the period poops this week. And he was like explaining the logic behind it. And he's like, and I don't know why we don't all talk about it. Like, we all experience this in one way or the other. We either know someone or we have it. It's like, why don't we just talk about why period poops happen, why periods happen, and why can't this be more of a conversation? So I really appreciated that, because I thought period poops were just something that me and my sister made up.
It's genetic.
Yeah, it's genetic.
Do you want me to tell you why they happen?
I would love
open
to.
up talking about poops.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's jump in.
So period poops happen because there's this hormone-like substance in the body called prostaglandins. Now, prostaglandins literally are what help you have your actual period. But what they do is, like, when you have higher levels of them, it like expands and contracts the soft muscle tissue in your intestines and different things like that, leading to the poop. It's a whole process, but they're also the reason we get menstrual cramps. So if you have higher levels of prostaglandins, you might notice that you have your cramps and they're unbearable, which I used to deal with, or you poop a lot, which, I mean, I still poop a lot, but like around my period, I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, and it's normal. It's kind of what happens as a way for your body to actually do what it needs to do to shed that uterine lining.
Okay.
It makes so much sense.
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense that anything that happens in your body around that time, like, has a reason, you know? So I've just always been curious. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So besides explaining how a poop works around that time of month, why else do we need a period bestie or a period coach?
Well, let's be honest. So, everyone experiences their doctor's visits very differently. But I think one of the main roles that I play is just sovereignty of your body and really body literacy. At the end of the day, as a menstrual health educator or a period coach or a period loving bestie, because we all need that friend, right? My role is to educate, empower, and equip people with not only knowledge, but tools to solve problems, to be their own best health advocate at the end of the day. We have so many different types of support, but one area where you don't get enough support is the area dealing with your actual body and just basic functionality. Like, y'all, I went my whole life. I went 14 years of having a period thinking I was supposed to be in pain. And then I interviewed someone for my podcast, and she's like, yeah, period pain's not normal. And I was like, first of all, you're not going to speed past that. Like, you didn't just say what you just said. And that was back in 2019.
Wow.
And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been lied to my whole life, like, basically.
Yeah.
And also, I want to solve this problem for myself. But then I realized all of my friends were having those same problems. So why do you need an actual coach? So we're going to tell you the stuff that maybe your doctor won't tell you, right? my job isn't to say that this is the only option. My job is to say, hey, here are a ton of solutions to your one problem. Which one aligns the best with you and your lifestyle? I'm not telling you what to do. I mean, I could, but why would I? Like, I don't want to just like, I think doctors have this role of like diagnosing and treating. And this is not to just dismiss them, but with working with a coach or a period bestie, right? We'll ask you questions as to like, what's your life like? Let's identify the root cause. Okay, so when you talk to your doctor, what kind of conversations are you having, right? So it's really challenging the narrative and getting you to think deeper about the relationship with your body.
That makes so much sense. I think there are a lot of things that we're told our periods should be or what's normal. And so I'd love to get into a few more of those myths, because that's a huge one, that like it's normal for your period to be painful. Is there anything else that we've been told that is a myth?
And dive a little bit more into the myth that it should be painful, because I'm still new to that understanding as well, that PMS shouldn't be as intense as it is for some people.
Okay, so where do you want to start? Like, where do you want to start? This is what I do. So let's talk about the pain first.
Okay.
And I'm going to break this down in a really simple way. What is pain a sign of? Like when you really think about it.
That something's wrong.
Distress.
Okay, so why do we not use that logic with our period?
That's a very good question.
So, and you know, I understand that it's common. It's not like I never had a painful period, but by definition, pain is literally telling us there's some type of illness, injury, or disease or dis-ease in the body. So it's this sign that something is off. Now, most people will not delve deeper into that when it comes to our periods because it's so common. It's like, oh, you're on your period. Of course, you're going to have some discomfort, but that's not normal. We normalize it. Just because something's common doesn't make it normal. Period.
My God.
Period. Okay.
You're so right.
So that's like the first thing. But like, you know, beyond that, another reason why a lot of people think this is normal is because there's not a lot of money going into science and research backing women's health and especially menstrual health. And at the end of the day, if we're not studying it, we're covering it up or we're just completely ignoring it. And this isn't me like trying to be on like my soapbox and get all like political, which I could, but I'm not going to. I'll spare you that. But like, you know, I think it's just like, there's so much lack of information. And so then we normalize things like pain, like, you have a broken bone. Oh, that's normal. Your wrist should hurt. No, it's broken.
Yeah.
Like, because you can physically see that, right? We know that's wrong, but because you can't physically see the cramp, you just physically feel it. Oh, that doesn't matter. Whatever. So that's like kind of my like oversimplified way of explaining period pain and like how it's normalized. Does that answer your question before I
100%. And I feel like the simple way to explain it, like you just did, is still going to be so like groundbreaking for people, because it's true. Like all your life, you're told if you have cramps, like, yeah, here's some more medicine. Like,
welcome to having a period. Welcome to womanhood, bitch.
Yeah. It's like, fuck. Everyone just let that be so normal, and no one cared to tell us that like we can look into that and help ourselves beyond like just medicating. You know, it could be like a lifestyle thing. So I think that's going to be huge for people. That's insane.
Oh, we're going to get into the lifestyle changes. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
Yay.
I'm so excited.
I was just going to say, if penises bled, we all know that it wouldn't be normalized.
Yeah.
We all know it would not be normalized. And the fact that there isn't money going into menstrual research is just disgusting and so disappointing.
Yeah.
And people with vaginas are just expected to suck it up, just like in like with sexual pain as well. Like anything that really has to do with vaginas, we're just expected to deal with it, because vaginas, this is something we talked about with Luna Matatas, are just more complicated.
Yeah.
That's not.
They're
the
really
case.
not. They're really not. If you took the chance to understand, like, all a penis is an inside out vagina. We all know that, but let me answer the other part of the question, the common myth.
Perfect.
So another really common myth, aside from being in pain, right? Or that you should be in pain, is that you should have a heavy bleed No. And I would say that your period should be 7 days in length. Also, no. These two things are very, very common. Your face right now, you're like, what?
Yeah.
News to me.
I'm engaging in a lot of these myths. So I would love to get into them more.
So the reason that the heavy bleeding is such a myth is because really you're only supposed to change your tampon 3 to 5 times a day. If you wear a tampon. If you wear a menstrual cup, you're only changing it twice. According to the American College of Obstetrician and Gynecologists, you should literally have 80 milliliters of fluid leaving your body per day for a normal menstrual bleed, quote unquote normal. Most women don't have that, but that's also because many, or I don't want to say women, let me say menstruators. I'm trying to switch my language as much as possible, but most menstruators are combating more than 80 milliliters leaving their body because of something called estrogen dominance more often than not. When you have higher levels of estrogen in the body, and usually that's attributed to the foods you're consuming, the products you're using, if they're not clean products, your stress, your anxiety. I mean, I can get into the kerfuffle that is, but usually that means you have this dominance of estrogen, which is leading to a heavier bleed more often than not. When it comes to the length of your period, a normal period should be anywhere from 3 to 7 days in length. Nothing shorter, nothing longer. As long as you fall in that window, you are good to go. Also, a normal menstrual cycle, the length of the cycle can be 21 to 34 days, not 28 days. And the lie that you ovulate on day 14, now they're all coming out. The lie that you ovulate on day 14. No, that's not true. Ovulation is the main event of the menstrual cycle. You're not always going to ovulate on day 14 because if you don't have a normal 28-day cycle, why would you ovulate on day 14?
Right.
That's how all these accidental pregnancies are happening. That and a lot of other things. But
we'll focus on this one.
So, there's this onslaught of all of these myths. Like we're told, oh, ovulation day 14. Oh, menstrual cycle 28 days. No, as long as you fall within this window, you're good to go. Ovulation is the main event of the menstrual cycle. So when your body deems it's time to release the egg because the environment is not only healthy, but also safe for it, that's when the egg will be released. Sometimes that can be earlier on. Sometimes that can be later. I mean, pick a struggle, like I'll tell you all of them. So just tell me what you want to know more about.
Dang. So I'm curious about the length of cycle and do you know if like your body is healthier, if it's like a consistent cycle? Cause mine has been like reverse cycling lately. Like I'll have a chunk of time that I'm like, it can expect my period. And then like a couple months ago, it came 2 weeks early. And now I'm on that schedule. And I don't really understand how like my cycle keeps shifting.
You want to get really personal?
I'll get really personal. It's my fucking podcast.
So, we're going to go into Coach Berry mode. Okay. So first thing I want you to think about is your life the last 18 months. What has that been like? Have you been stressed out? Have you been anxious? Those two things. I'm just going to lay in with those two things. Okay. Stress and anxiety are also hormones. Right? We have our cortisol. They're two sides of the same coin, in my opinion. I don't care what anybody says. But when that happens, it can change your entire course of your menstrual cycle. Because if you have higher levels of stress, that's going to impact not only insulin, but also estrogen. And we know what estrogen is. We love her. Yeah. we live for estrogen. But at the end of the day, cortisol is the HBIC. She's the Beyonce of hormones. So if you're stressed out or you're anxious, your body is in this consistent fight or flight, and it's operating out of, we're going to get really nerdy, the sympathetic nervous system instead of the parasympathetic. Okay. So our sympathetic is our fight. It's our flight. It's like, keep me alive. Right. And our parasympathetic is our rest and our digest. So if you're in this constant state of stress and anxiety, like I'm not even going to lie, I have also been like, this whole panorama is really throwing life off for all of us, right? Your menstrual cycle will naturally change. So as you figure out how to manage your stress and your anxiety in different ways, you will actually see a difference in your cycle. And okay, Keep following. Just stay with me.
Okay.
The cycle, like the period you experience, let's just say tomorrow, is a result of what was happening in life 90 days ago.
Oh, fuck.
Yup.
What?
So
Oh my
if you
God.
weren't living right 90 days ago, it's gonna rear its head tomorrow.
Shit. Wait, so how does 90 days ago?
Okay. All
Please
right.
keep going.
I just like don't want to like overwhelm everybody, but here's basically what's happening. So throughout the menstrual cycle, there's 4 phases, and there's a lot of key hormones at play, but specifically a hormone called the follicle stimulating hormone, also known as FSH. FSH has one job, and that's to really prepare your egg and really help it mature before it gets released from your ovary. So once it's done its job and prepared that egg, it takes roughly 90 days for the follicle stimulating hormone, but more specifically, the follicle that was maturing the egg to turn into something called the corpus luteum. Now, the corpus luteum, God, I feel so bad right now. The corpus luteum secretes a hormone called progesterone. Okay. Progesterone is what really makes us feel calm and makes us feel loving. It makes us feel like, okay, like hey, honey, do me. Like, you know, that's what progesterone will do. Right. But it gets made from that follicle, and it takes 90 days for this transformation to occur. Are we making sense?
Yes.
Yes. I feel like I should pull up like a PowerPoint and like walk you through it, but I'm doing my best to like,
that
make
feels
sure that, you know, it's a 90-day transformation essentially. Now, yeah, can we change your period in 6 weeks? Absolutely. All I have to do is tell you to manage your stress levels and your anxiety and stop eating trash. I don't know how you eat. That wasn't directed at you. Like, if you eat like trash, stop eating like trash and see what your body does. Right. See how your menstrual cycle changes. So that is how and why.
Got it. Yeah. These last like 6 months have been super crazy, just like trying to find a job, pandemic, blah, 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 blah. So I can see how that would have affected. It just felt so drastic, like I've never had a 2-week turnaround for my period. You know, it's either been like longer or like a couple days earlier. So, but all of that makes sense. And I don't think I like tracked that as much as I should have, which is another thing that I think should be normalized more, is like, let's keep track of what our
using your menstrual cycle as like an indicator of health, like you would any other aspect of your body.
Right, exactly.
Well, let me just drop this in here. According to the American College of Obstetrician and Gynecologists, right, ACOG, backed by the American Academy of Pediatrics, your menstrual cycle is your 5th vital sign. Do you want to know when they jumped to this conclusion?
Yes.
2019, and reaffirmed it in 2020. Y'all mean to tell me we just got to this? So it is actually something like the actual menstrual cycle is something that we're utilizing as a vital sign moving forward. But like they a day late and a dollar short with that.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's insane.
Well, in terms of the stress and anxiety, because I can relate, so I have been stressed and anxious for years. Like the pandemic was not what brought on my stress and anxiety. I brought that into the pandemic. So, you know, if I'm doing that for years in and out and not doing the things that I need to really like combat that stress or mitigate, whatever, can that build up and make it so that it's harder to like get back to that steady state, that normal state? Like, it's going to take a lot longer than 6 weeks.
Like you've made your period anxious, and now this is who she is.
She's scared too.
Yes and no. Okay. And the reason I'm saying yes and no is because I think it's all about kind of the approach to doing it, right? So I always teach my students and clients strategy and tactics. There's a big difference. So the strategy is the long-term thing. The tactics are the day-to-day habits, right? So let's say, for instance, you did what you did, right? I'm bringing stress and anxiety to the panorama, right? I don't know why I'm like using it to say pandemic, but like we're just going to go with it because it's like kind of a vibe right now. So we're going to go with it. But, you know, your body will regulate when you give it space to. So often we live our lives in this day-to-day go, 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 and we build it up. But I wonder what it would be like if you just said, you know what? Not today. I'm just going to live. I don't know how I'm going to live, but I'm going to just do it. I'm not going to be stressed out. I'm not going to be anxious. I'm going to catch my thoughts. And also, disclaimer, not a therapist. So take what you need, leave what you don't, you know. But like, I always challenge people to say, like, okay, what am I in charge of today? Because we have this illusion of control. I have a Virgo rising, so I definitely have this illusion of control. And it's not a thing, right? I have to tell myself this, but I am in charge. I'm in charge of how I like spend my energy, how I respond to people, how I do a lot of different things. So for you, actually, could we change your period in 6 weeks? We actually probably could. Would it be the most perfect period? No, but could it be better than the ones you've had? Absolutely. I mean, I just finished working with a woman who had PCOS for 3 years, was told she could not have a period. We worked together for 6 weeks, and in the 6th week, she got her period.
Jesus.
God.
Do you
naturally?
Wow.
No trash, you know. And then she just messaged me on Instagram not too long ago. Oh my God, I've had my 2nd period since working with you, and it's only been 30 days. And I'm like, we all need me. We all need me, right? But like, it's about the lifestyle choices and the habits and the day-to-day decisions. How tactical do you want to be? Because let me tell you, once you know your menstrual cycle and really use it as a blueprint, your sex will get better. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying it can get a lot better. You know, there's so many different things. Did you know when you ovulate, that's like the perfect time to go deeper?
No. Why? Okay. Going.
Because your cervix changes placement throughout the month.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Is it go all it? Okay. See, remember when I brought this up forever ago that when you have an orgasm, I thought I heard once that like it shifts.
You brought that up in like our 2nd episode, I think.
Yeah, forever ago. So it can move as well over time, over your cycle? Like what?
So your cervix changes place throughout the month. It's one of the biomarkers that we actually like use when you are doing the fertility awareness method, which is natural contraception as opposed to hormonal birth control. And so throughout the month, the closer you get to ovulating, the higher the cervix gets, so that the sperm has a shorter time to actually attempt to fertilize an egg. Okay. So I feel like this episode is all over the place, but
I love it. Oh no, we're fine. Yeah. They'll keep up.
We're gonna do a little health class of berries. So the further you are away from, everybody put up your index finger. I want you guys to like actually do this with me. Okay. The further away you are from ovulating, the lower your cervix would be. So the start of your period, it'll be at this first line on like your knuckle generally. When you're in your follicular phase, it should get up to the 2nd line. When you're ovulating, it'll get to the 3rd line. Well, I guess I should be moving in this direction. Sorry. So first line, cervix low. Cervix medium, cervix high.
Okay. So from the top of your finger down.
Yeah. It'll feel like the tip of your Cupid's bow right here. It'll be at the Cupid's bow when you're ovulating.
Oh, fuck.
And then when you're not, it's going to feel like the tip of your nose.
That's how your cervix will feel?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. But it's so much harder.
That's the point, though. So the point is, right, because the menstrual cycle is designed to get you pregnant. Like at the end of the day, like, tell us about health, but also like conceiving. So if it feels like, you know, what we say, if it's soft, high, open, and wet, that means you're ovulating. Yeah. Your faces, you're like, all right.
Soft, high, open, and wet over here. I don't know.
And that's going to make it easier, right, to have one, better sex, but two, that's like kind of the environment that the body wants to be in when it's time to conceive, when it's time for the egg to be fertilized. But if we take that out, like for me, I'm like, listen, I ain't trying to have no kids anytime soon. Like, I don't need y'all running around. I got a bag to get, right? So with that being said, this is also the time to exercise a lot more caution throughout your menstrual cycle too. And because we're on the note of ovulation, let's talk about getting pregnant really quick. All right,
Okay,
let me give you the juice. Biggest myth of all time. You can get pregnant every day of your cycle. No numb nut, you can't. Like you literally, you cannot. That is physically impossible, right? Because the egg, you're only ovulating for 16 to 32 hours. Okay. But about 5 to 6 days leading up to ovulation, you could potentially conceive. And here's why. Sperm can live in the uterus for up to 5 days and in the fallopian tubes for up to 7 days. So once you're done with your period and pre-ovulating, you gotta like really be cautious. Like wrap it up. I don't care. There's tons of different like condoms, diaphragms, I mean, the list goes on and on. But I think that that's important to know because we're taught you can get pregnant every day of your cycle. Trash. Whoever said that clearly didn't have a vagina. Clearly. You don't know anything. You discredit it, right? But then after that, it's also important to know that like, can you get pregnant after ovulation? Technically, no. But most people don't know when they're ovulating.
Right.
So they're like, oh, well, I'm on day 14. So like, I'm good on day 15. No, that's not how that works. Did you check your body? Did you check your body?
So then what is day one? What is day one of our cycle?
The first day you bleed.
First
full day you bleed.
Can we do a mini anatomy lesson right now? Because I realized just because we know what a period is and the phases of it, it would be helpful to give just a little lesson on like what really is a period. You mentioned it's the shedding of the lining and the phases, so that as we continue on and talk about lifestyle changes and all of that, maybe we can just start shoving it into those categories. Is that okay with you?
Period school with Berry.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things I always say is the menstrual cycle is a blueprint. There are 4 phases to your cycle. Do you want me to do the definition of the period again, or are we good?
I think, yeah, we're fine.
We're fine. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So the first phase of your cycle is menstruation. Okay. This is when you're on the actual period. This is when the uterine lining is shedding and you're like, don't look at me. Don't touch me. Please fuck right off. Okay. Great. So and that's generally going to be days 1 through 7. However, this can change depending on how long your period actually is, right? So your period could end on day 5. So from there, we get into something called the follicular phase. This is post-period, but pre-ovulation. This is when your hormone levels are on the rise and when the uterine lining begins to build back up. Now, generally, I would say, like if you have a 7-day period, this is going to be days 8 through about 14. And this is, I'm being very generous with this because if you have a 28-day cycle, this might apply to you, but it might not. It's a sliding window because we get to the third phase of our cycle, ovulation. And that's the main event of the menstrual cycle. Everything is actually kind of predicated around ovulation. So ovulation is when we're fertile, when we want the honey stewing us. Okay. But in addition to this is when the egg is released from the ovary. Okay. And I mean, that's it. There's nothing else to say about ovulation. It happens for some research says 16 to 32 hours, some says 24 hours, but that is ovulation. This is like my favorite time of the month. And I think a lot of people, as long as you don't have ovulation pain, but most people are like Diana Ross, like, I'm coming out, right? Like we're vibing, we're living for it. And that's because our estrogen, testosterone, and luteinizing hormones actually skyrocket. Our hormones are at their highest. So we're feeling good. And we have that glow that like we lust for, right?
Yeah.
Then we get to the go.
No, I was gonna say because I've experienced that like pre-period, like damn, I look good type of feeling, and I've talked to my friends about it too. It's like, why right before our period do we feel amazing? Like we look in the mirror, it's the same person I saw yesterday, but today this bitch looks good. So and that makes sense that's because all of our hormones are at their peak, and so that explains.
But your brain chemistry is also different. I'll get into that in a moment. I'm gonna walk them through the phases before we delve into that because y'all gonna be like, yeah, no. So once you're done ovulating, you get into something called the luteal phase, also known as PMS, right? Premenstrual syndrome. Now, I like to say personal mystery solved because when you're PMS and you're like, Oh, that's why I was acting up. Oops. That's why you got cussed out. Oops. Okay. But also, if you have a really, really painful PMS, please make it stop. Like, okay, I don't want to deal with this. Now, the luteal phase is broken down into kind of two sections, if you will. You have your early luteal phase, which still makes you feel like you're ovulating. And then you have your late luteal phase, which is when you're testy and you're like, don't talk to me, or whatever the kids do on TikTok. I'm not a TikToker. I try, but
You can do it.
you know.
There we go.
Yes, yeah, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So, that's the actual time of your cycle where the body actually prepares for a potential pregnancy. So the hormone progesterone will actually increase. Okay. And progesterone really makes you feel calm, makes you feel loving. It helps release some of those love hormones like oxytocin, for instance. But a lot of us have lower levels of progesterone because, well, tell me, do you like talking to people during PMS?
I like talking to
Do you
people
want
ever,
anybody
really.
to touch you?
No.
Exactly. No, case in point, right? But in addition to that, the body potentially prepares for this pregnancy. And then once it realizes that the egg isn't fertilized, the uterine lining begins to break down. And then you start noticing the common bloating, the fatigue, the hormonal acne, which I'm glowy right now because one, I have a ring light on, but two, I'm ovulating. So like, I'm like, hey, right? But then, we get these PMS symptoms during that luteal phase. And then at one point in time, your body will be like, okay, all of the uterine lining is now broken. It's time to shed. And so we begin the menstrual cycle all over with our period.
Okay. That's a good layout, because I've gonna admit I've always been confused on what day one was. So I'm glad to hear it.
I think that the way we're taught it is kind of like backwards, because what they tell us is like, oh, it's 28 days and also you're going to have a period and hate it, that end. And it's like, yo, bro, who's lying like that?
Yeah. Because you feel like the menstrual phase is the end of everything, but really it's the beginning of everything else. So yeah, it has been taught backwards a little bit, but that's good. Now we all have a very clear. Can you go into the brain chemistry of before that? Because I'm very curious.
Okay. All right. Let me. So this is my favorite thing. So I teach people how to literally understand the brain changes as well as the physical ones, but the brain ones just, they're so good. So during your menstrual phase, there's 25% more connectivity between the right and left hemispheres of your brain, thus meaning you're more creative. So like, have you ever like been in the shower and you're on your period, but you're in the shower and you're like, wow, I just got a random idea. Okay. So this is a time for ideation and really writing that idea down. Don't do anything with the idea. Just write the idea down. I always say visualization, goals, all that stuff, big picture thinking. The second phase of your cycle, the follicular phase, what actually happens is your hippocampus and your amygdala, both known for communication, basically connecting with other people, and your memory actually begins to get larger. So you can talk to people more and like you can think about things a little differently as well, because your brain is like, okay, how can I communicate best with people? How can I like maybe write the best copy for like my sales page, or how can I create the best content on TikTok, right? All of these things. So I always say this is creation and strategic planning related. Then when we're ovulating, not only is the hippocampus and amygdala at its largest, right? But then we start infusing the levels of our estrogen and testosterone and luteinizing hormone that makes people more magnetized by us. Like literally our body chemistry is different. So like, that's why you feel like $1,000,000 right before your period. The estrogen is like, like what? Like, okay, right? So we're feeling really, really good during this time. But also, our prefrontal cortex begins to shrink. So you might be like, English. So the prefrontal cortex, if you're like to look at your head, right, it's going to be this front part of your brain right here. And what happens is this is the newest part of our brain. So this part actually shrinks down a little bit, meaning that our subconscious, or like the rest of our brain, where we're more primal, is starting to gain a little bit more power. Okay. So we have, we have our hippocampus and our amygdala making us magnetic and like really fun. But then also we have part of us, like the new us, right? Our highest selves kind of shrinking a little bit naturally. But then once you get to that luteal phase, it's so small that you go from thinking in this very allocentric and like connecting with people, serving other people, to very egocentric.
Okay.
And then your hippocampus and your amygdala also shrink, which is why you're like, I'm a hermit,
Yeah.
right? Don't talk to me. That's exactly what's happening in the brain chemistry. And so we go through these changes throughout the month. But again, you know, like I know this because I will sit and read research study after study after study. Most people aren't going to read that. And then also, this is like across multiple disciplines. So what I just shared about the brain is coming from neuroscience, but it's also cross-referenced in psychology all of the time. Mm-hmm. Well, if I'm thinking about a period, why would I be cross-referencing neuroscience and psychology, right? Like most people wouldn't do that, but I'm like, we have to be irritable for some reason. Like, give me answers.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Oh, that was so good.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. It's just insane how much of in the fact that on only 2019 and 2020 did this become something that it needs to be focused on moving forward. The fact that it's just so logical how it would affect us from like tip to tail.
It would be a vital sign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of my friends, he just graduated from Harvard Medical School. Like, he's a Harvard doctor. Love that for you. Okay, don't care. He was like, I have learned more from your Instagram about menstrual cycles and periods than I did in school.
Wow.
And I was like, what kind of doctor are you going to be? Like, I was like, he's like, don't worry, I'm going to be a surgeon. I was like, oh, okay. But like, also that's slightly alarming because again, this just goes to show, one, yes, we live in a patriarchal society, but number two, we're really not studying this enough. And there's so many things that are really connected to your hormones and your menstrual cycles. So many common conditions that people have where I'm like, what do you know about your period? Nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start with the basics of that. Like that's why I'm like always obsessed talking about periods. And that's why you need a period coach. Yeah. That's why you need a period bestie.
I would love to get into some of the lifestyle changes to address a lot of the things that we've been talking about. Yeah. And I have a lot of sex questions too, but let's start out with general lifestyle changes.
Okay, so my first style, like, okay, where do I want to start with this? Because like, I can't decide if the thing I did when I was fixing my period. So like, for reference, I was the girl who had a period from hell. So by the time I got my first period when I was 12, by the time I was a freshman in high school, my period was just like the worst thing. I was 14 and I was like, I'm going to die. By the time I was 15, I was a elite athlete. So I would have a period for 4 months and it was like vengeance. And then it would go missing for 8 months. But that was like normalized, right? Because I was a high level athlete. Then I went to college, you guys, and I was a collegiate athlete as well. But I got on hormonal birth control. And wow, my performance really reflected not only how trash my lifestyle was, but also how much birth control was changing the body. So I stopped taking it after like a year and a half. And, you know, let's fast forward to 2016. I'm graduating from college. Everything's natural. I'm still a moody bitch. Couldn't figure out why. Still having periods from hell. Fast forward to 2019. By then I was a certified personal trainer and functional nutritionist. And someone was like, you should read this book called Woman Code. And I was like, all right, like, okay, whatever. Like, I didn't see the hype. And then she started, Elisa Vitti, I believe that's how her name is pronounced, started talking about cycle syncing. And I was like, oh my God. So I ate my way to a better period.
Okay.
And that's really what it started with, was the food changes. So eating in sync with my cycle. Now, first and foremost, let's just cover the basics: protein, healthy fat, and fiber at every single meal. That's where you start. Then from there, you start thinking about, okay, well, because I'm ovulating and because my metabolism actually increases, I can have more calories, not trash, just more calories. Okay. So this is where we're thinking about getting more of those like low GI carb, like starches, like our sweet potatoes and different things like that. Well, as you get closer to your period, you actually want to focus in more on like warmer foods and things that are higher in specific micronutrients like iron, zinc, and like minerals, like those things. Now, I don't expect everybody to walk away from this. I will send you a link to an Instagram post. It's a free grocery list for everybody.
Oh, I love
and
it.
other Instagram posts with like recipes for them to like be able to see this. But it's like, that's where you start with the thing that's easiest. Food was always easy for me. I had to think a lot about it. I was like, do I really need to buy organic or not? Okay, fine. Like, you know, it was that simple, but I've always had a healthy relationship with food. So if you don't have a healthy relationship with food, then maybe you want to start with your workouts, right? So you're going to train two weeks out of the month where really heavy, high intensity interval training, sprinting, all of that stuff. But then you might do 2 weeks of like more like low key mat Pilates, a little yoga, you know, different things like that. So you have to look at the menstrual cycle and say, okay, there's 2 weeks of high energy and 2 weeks of low energy, PMS period, high energy, post-period ovulation, and like early luteal phase, which most people still say is ovulation at that point. That's what you're going to do. Because again, it's a blueprint. So start with your fitness or your nutrition, one of those two, and learn how to manage your fucking stress. Period.
Yeah, period.
There's nothing else to say. Because when you can manage your stress and when you can actually self-regulate and get your body out of this fight or flight and into a rest and digest, your hormones will respond differently. And I love to say, like, oh, manage stress first. That'll change your life. Everyone's like, how do I do it? And I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know. Do it.
Do it.
Like, because for me, managing my stress looks like doing my meditation in the morning, doing some journaling, doing some reading. But like my morning routine is mine. I don't know if you want to meditate. I don't even know if you like it. You know, so I can't tell you how to manage your stress. But what I can tell you is if you can change your food and your fitness first and foremost, you'll start seeing results. Once you finally make time for managing stress, and it's not just going to therapy once a week, guys. Like I know people think managing stress happens once a week. No, it's a daily practice, right? You can kind of chill everything out and really begin those changes. So those are the easiest and like honestly I would say most affordable. From there, I mean, if you want me to make recommendations for like do this, do that, I can, but like I like to go with free first because it's easy. Oh, and sleep.
Those are so good. And it's hard to remember that what you eat and how you work out can really affect yourself 3 weeks from now. You know, like that's been the hardest thing for me. It's like, oh, but I'm just gonna, you know, not care about myself when I'm having my cramps, but it really does affect everything. I don't know. All of the workout stuff too. I've never been someone that's regulated my like workout regime to how my body is feeling. I've always like pushed myself because of what my head is telling me, you know, and I've never like just taken care of my body and been like, but actually I don't feel good today and I don't want to do that. And then that just starts this whole other thing. I don't know.
Well, and I think that speaks to something that I do as well. And you can tell me if I'm wrong, but a lot of what I do in terms of food and exercise is not for my body. It's against my body because it's trying to change my body. It's never been like in line with, I really want to support you. It's like, no, I don't like the way you look, so I'm going to change you.
Right.
And so when it's that, it's like, of course, it's not going to be regulated in a supportive, loving way.
Exactly.
I did have a question about sleep. Does it matter what time you go to sleep? Like, you know, I always get 8 hours, but sometimes I go to bed very late and I feel like it matters.
It does matter. But before I answer your sleep question, let's talk about two things that you said, because I feel like anybody listening to this can really resonate. So first and foremost, the U.S. women's soccer team, they practice working out in sync with their cycle. So if you needed validation because they're freaking awesome,
I love that. I didn't know.
Happy.
That makes me happy.
Okay, so like, I feel like that's always a good point of validation. But to address the eating thing, First, thank you for sharing that, like being so vulnerable, like appreciate that. But second, you know, I'm not somebody who has ever had a weird relationship with food. And I say weird because it's like, I don't understand, and I don't try to be insensitive. I'm just very direct. So like, forgive me if that was
that feels like
insensitive.
the right word, because everybody's different too. Everybody's relationship is different. So weird is kind of
It's just the catch-all.
Because honestly, I don't think a lot of people relate to the word disordered, because it feels really scary. And we see like eating disorders as this one particular thing. And it's like, okay, well, like I have struggled with disordered eating a lot. So I think weird is a much more accessible term that people can just feel a little more comfortable with.
I always say, you know, try to eat better and not less. So make different choices and start realizing that food is a tool. It's either going to work for you or against you, but how it works is going to be up to you. And for the love of all that is good and glamorous in the world, please listen, and listen very closely, friends. Do not, under any circumstance, listen to somebody tell you that this diet works or that diet works. Take the whole diet and the whole person and put it in the trash.
The whole person.
Like, just take it all and put it in the trash. And here's why, right? First of all, when it comes to diets, whether it's keto or what's another popular, I don't even know what diets are out there. Even intermittent fasting, prime example. Okay. They will work for a smidgen of time, but they're not designed for people who have periods. The research about them are done on people who have penises. Women and people of color were not actually included in research until 1993. I was born in 94. So please respectfully fuck right off with your science and your research, because it didn't include me.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. But it also doesn't honor the ebbs and flows and the hormonal changes, because we don't study hormonal changes in menstrual cycles in clinical research. We simply do not. Why? I don't know. But what I do know is, you know, when you better your relationship with food and give yourself a lot more freedom to understand, okay, you know what? My body is craving chocolate today. You want to know why your body's craving chocolate? Because chocolate has calcium and magnesium and vitamin D. Your body is craving nutrients, but it can only think of that amazing Butterfinger. Like, I love a good Butterfinger, okay? It can only think of the Butterfinger. It can only think of the Snickers, because it's probably needing calories, especially if you're somebody who has disordered eating patterns or has had them. Your body is also probably like, oh, I need more nutrients, especially if you're going for a Butterfinger. Like, you know, at the end of the day, the body is going to associate and go for what it knows it's needing. But maybe you're somebody who's never had Moody Girls chocolate, and like, shout out to Moody Girl chocolate, obviously not sponsoring this episode, but that's the best PMS chocolate on the market. It's specifically for like PMS. It's a superfood chocolate.
Oh my God.
Ooh, we'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Damn.
Just tell her Barry sent you. Like, she'll hook you up. Don't worry. Just be like, Barry sent me. Okay.
Oh my God.
She is amazing. But like, you know, your body at the end of the day is saying, hey, I need some love. I need some support. So it might start craving some things that you know you don't want to eat, right? You're like, I know that Snickers isn't good for me, but she's thick. You know? She's calorie dense. You know, she also has a few bits of nutrients. I mean, I don't know anymore because I haven't looked at the labels recently, but the body is like somewhat aware of those things. So your job and your role is to say, hey, I love me today. Or even on a day where you don't love yourself, because I have those moments where I'm like, bitch,
I cannot with you.
I'm not cute. I'm forever saying I'm cute. You know, I'm one of those people. But like, even on those days, I do my due diligence of saying, okay, what do you need today? How can I support you? Because when you change that relationship with your body and your relationship with food, that's when you start losing the weight. And a lot of people don't realize when you have high levels of estrogen, it actually causes you to retain more weight. Sorry. But like, if we could start, you know, chilling out, living in sync with our cycle and learning how to manage our stress, we can lower those estrogen levels naturally, and then we can have better periods and we can lose the weight.
All goes into each other. That's crazy. I had no idea that there was a period chocolate. That's so
cool.
fun. And that's a great, like, explanation of how our cravings work during that time of month too. I feel like also with these like lifestyle changes, we can kind of go into sex during our phases and the different ways that sex feels during our cycle.
So we all know that sex is not only a physical, but also a mental thing. And I always love to tell people, like, bring intimacy back first and foremost. Sex is the action. Intimacy is that connection. So, like, you know, I haven't listened to all the episodes, y'all. So I don't know how these conversations go, but like, just in case you need to hear it from someone else, bring intimacy and connection back into the bedroom or wherever you're having sex for that matter, like on the couch, on the table, outdoors, I don't know, wherever people are being adventurous, right? Bring the intimacy back first and foremost, because this is going to release different chemistry in your brain and be like, oh, I like you more. Oh, I can emit more progesterone. Oh, more oxytocin. Oh, okay. So then, you know, when you're on your period, I know some people who are like, I want to have period sex. I've never wanted to. I've just never, please don't touch me or talk to me. Like, that's generally how I feel. I just want to bleed and be by myself. But a lot of people do enjoy period sex. And if you're one of those people, just look at the blood as a natural lubricant. Now, can you go deep? Maybe. I don't know. I've never explored it. I wouldn't be surprised if you could, or like, I wouldn't be shocked, because the body is naturally already open to releasing, right? It's already physically releasing. So that's why I'm kind of like, why would you want to? Okay, whatever. All right. If you want to get up in there,
shove it back in. Yeah. Shove it all like a cork. Yeah. Just cork it.
But you also want to remember that the cervix is generally going to be low, right, during this phase. So the cervix is going to be here during this phase. Then when we get in the follicular phase, so post bleed, but the closer we get to ovulation, the cervix is getting higher and higher. So sex is getting better and better.
Okay. Closer to ovulation.
The closer you are to ovulation, and once you're ovulating, it's just like, God damn, what time, right? Like, yeah, you are living for this. And then, you know, the further you are away from ovulation and the second half of the cycle, so post ovulating, sex might not be as enjoyable. It's still supposed to be enjoyable all times throughout the month, but like, the penis can't get in deep enough. I mean, if we're using a toy, it's not going to have the same sensation, because it can't go in as deep. And generally what happens is our bodies begin to close off more. So during ovulation, our hips are set a little bit wider and our cervix is a lot soft, high, open and wet. Get up in there, right? Like, we love it. Hey. But then when you're PMSing, your body is like, nope. No. And I do know that some people are like, I want to do that more. And it makes sense, because progesterone, which is releasing a lot of our love hormones, is high during this time. Or I shouldn't say love hormones, it's releasing our love neurotransmitters is really high during this time. So, you know, I think it depends on the dynamic of the relationship too. But also, like, let's say, for instance, you're mad at your partner when you're PMSing. That sex's about to be terrible. And if it's good, it's because you like makeup sex.
Yeah, I've never taken into consideration where your cervix is during the different phases of your cycle and how that can impact your sex. High, wet. What did you say? What is it?
It's called show. Soft, high, open, and wet.
Showgirl.
I think now is a good time to tell you guys to check your panties. That's like my thing. So let's talk about checking our panties. So we're checking our panties for cervical mucus. Okay. I know it sounds so disgusting. Mucus.
It's like a word that gets caught in your throat.
Honestly, the first time I heard that, I was like, we couldn't get a sexier word. Like, really? Now, if there's somebody who wears panties to bed, like I personally don't, I just like to, like, if I'm on my period, I've got my cup in, or I have on my period panties. But outside of being on my period, nope. I just like to be free. Okay. But if you wear panties, you can check your panties. Like, I wish I had like a pair of underwear around me so I could show you, but like, you know, that middle part where like your vagina actually sets, well, like, or your labia, I guess. If you look at that lining, you notice it's always like double lined, and that's because of cervical mucus. So look at that and see what it looks like. And if you don't have panties on like me, you just kind of grab a tissue, or like for me, I just like make sure my hands are washed and I touch down there. And what you're looking for is something that looks like a raw egg white. Okay. So like think about the last time you cracked an egg and what that egg white looked like. It was clear, right? Translucent. And it was like the tackiness was like kind of stretchy. That's your cervical mucus. And when you're ovulating, it's going to look like that raw, runny egg white. Whereas when you're not ovulating, it's going to look a totally different thing. Some people look like Elmer's glue. I can't really relate to that. Some people look a little like chunky. You know, I'll make sure you guys get a visual for the show notes and so people can see this, but it really does actually change. So when you're ovulating, soft, high, open, and then wet, raw, runny egg whites is another sign.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of checking the cervical fluid. I've never known what to check it against.
Yeah. Exactly.
So when your cervical mucus and like your body is like really good, like when you are like physically very, very healthy, your cervical mucus is like an amazing lubricant.
It's good to know. That's a good
It really
goal.
is.
That's a good goal. Yeah.
And then if it's like, you can notice it too, because like when you're more stressed out, they don't really have cervical mucus. Your body is like, I'm struggling.
I
right
need
now,
all of
and
this.
I'm gonna let you know.
Just
like your body's
inside.
gonna be like, I'm gonna let you know, get it together.
You don't get
And
anything.
like during ovulation or like leading to ovulation, generally you'll still notice it, but like it might not be what you want it to be. I'm gonna leave it that way without being too graphic.
And we'll just be sure to check the Instagram post to see what we can like visually compare it to.
Yeah, we'll make sure everything's in the show notes.
Yeah. Damn, you've given us so much to think about and to like really assess in our lives.
Yeah.
If you're a menstruator, that is like such a mind-blowing thing.
Is there anything else you feel like we didn't cover that you want to mention? Any PSAs, anything like that?
I feel like everything is still in my brain that I need to like share. But honestly, you know, I think that let me make a few recommendations.
Please.
So if you're somebody who likes Midol and Pamprin, stop buying it and go buy something called Semaine. I said what I said and I meant it. It's plant-based period pain relief.
Oh.
Okay.
And as somebody who used to take 3 or 4 different Pamprins or Midols at a time, I can speak to the Semaine. And like, I literally love the sisters. When they sent me the product, I was like, still like, who are you and what do you want with me? I didn't know them. So I was like, why are you trying to send me this? Like, you know, because you got to be a little skeptical.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
with
pills coming in the mail.
For my period. But they had endometriosis and they still do, but they created a phenomenal product. And so you can get it at your local Target. You can also order it online. Semaine.
How do you spell that?
Semaine. Semaine.
Okay. I will be getting that. I also have endometriosis. So.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So then you're also doing like gluten-free, dairy-free, refined, sugar-free?
No, I should be. I am working really closely with a functional doctor. And so I'm on like a good supplement regimen that has really helped, but I know that I need to make the lifestyle changes as well. And stress is, yeah.
Red raspberry leaf tea is generally going to be a saving grace for those of you who have really, really bad period pain and like heavy bleeding. Like I drank it every single day. Regular old traditional medicinals. Okay. I got it at my local grocery store. That I drink it in the morning and in the evening because it helped me wind down, and it really helps to strengthen and tone the muscles of the uterus, and it kind of combats the prostaglandin levels that lead to the period poops and the cramping. So I always like to recommend that. And then honestly, I just want everyone to know you can have a period and a life, like an enjoyable one at that. And this is coming from someone who used to hate their period, and now I'm like, I like that people know that. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Where can our listeners continue connecting with you after the episode?
I'm honored. Okay, so if you like my personality, come to my personal Instagram at Berrion Berry. I'm sugar, spice, everything organic and nice. Like, I really am. And I think you got to sense that in this episode. But if you just like the information, go hang out on my company Instagram at Optimize Your Flow. And I have a podcast. It's called Flow, right?
Perfect.
Flow with Berrion Berry on all of the podcast platforms.
Period. Period. Get it?
I get it. End of sentence.
Barry said it a lot cooler in the episode a few times.
You're like, period. Period. Period, you got.
See, it's like a creepy alien.
I think the voice we just did there was different than the voice we were doing
Well, it
before.
feels very similar, has a irk to it. Anyway, thank you, Barry, for being on the podcast today. And thank you to our listeners for menstruating along.
Definitely make sure that you share this episode with somebody that you care about, a friend, a lover.
I don't know.
Somebody who menstruates, somebody who doesn't menstruate. Everybody needs to know this stuff, and it's not out there enough. Head on over to Apple Podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe to Honey Do Me. It means so much to us. If this is going to be the episode that gets you to leave a review, obviously leave the blood drop.
Blood drop.
Like, what else are you going to do?
Yes.
Ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Oh. So yeah, blood. Lots of blood.
Lots of blood.
Give me your blood.
But not more than 80 milliliters, right?
Correct. Enjoy your week. Keep your blood to yourself.
And we'll see you some other time.
So, I mean...
Bye.